Rick is here. Lance from Tallahassee. Ace is here. Brian here from Pennsylvania. Heather says, afternoon from Leeds. 100% focusing on t-shirts. Happy days. Cool. Well, I hope it's nice up in Leeds today. It's a bit of a cloudy, miserable day outside here in Cheshire. Wendy is here. Karen is here from the US. Code Whisperer from Texas. Livia from the Netherlands. Awesome. Sue from Wisconsin. Bo is here as well. Wonderful stuff. So thank you for joining me. We're going to do a t-shirt design review session today. We haven't done one of those in a long time, actually. So this is going to be fun. Let me just pull my screen up here before we dive in. Let me say a few more hellos. Who have we got here? Jojo Cruz is here. Katie from Wisconsin, and Marion from New York. Ritesh is from India. Kushbu is here. Clint from Cape Town. Armin from Leipzig. Awesome stuff. So thank you all for joining me. This is lovely to see you here. It has been a few weeks since we've done a live stream like this. And I think this will be a good one today. We got some nice designs people have sent in. We got some stuff we can help some people with. Beth from Pittsburgh is here. Carrie from Cleveland, Ohio. Edson from Brazil. Awesome. So yeah, let me without further ado, let's get cracking here today. Let me roll through a few of the things that we're going to do. So if this is your first time watching, or your second or third or 100th time watching, I don't think I've done 100 live streams yet, but if you're watching, please do like and subscribe. That would be great. Just helps boost the video and all that good stuff. As usual, you can ask your questions live. So head over to YouTube, or if you're on Facebook, you can add comments there. I will see them come up on my screen, so I can answer you, and you can ask questions, and we can take it like that. So there's no ceremony here. Just go ahead and ask anything you want to ask in the comments. You can just fire away at any time. I will leave a little bit of time at the end for questions as well, but yeah, just go ahead and pop them in the comments if you've got a question. Jaideep from India. Nina is here from Mississippi. Ace from Malaysia. And Holloway is here. Good. Awesome. So, yeah, like and subscribe. Ask your questions. If you're not already on my email newsletter, if you don't receive emails from me, you can sign up for free. michaelessick.com/live. You'll get some free goodies there. Have a free ebook, which is about helping you come up with better ideas. And lots of other stuff in there as well. You can check it out, michaelessick.com/live. You really should be on my email list, because that's where you find out about all the cool latest stuff that's going on behind the scenes. I'm also on Instagram, instagram.com/michaelessick. If you want to find me and follow me on there, that would be cool. That's it. That other one shouldn't have been there. Mike is here from Ontario, Canada. Awesome. So today what we're going to do is we're going to do some live reviews. I sent out an email yesterday. Plenty of you responded with designs you'd like an opinion on or some help with. So we're going to look at those. Thank you to everyone who sent something in. We aren't going to review everything, because there were some designs which I just really can't help people with. That I didn't have the context, or it just didn't make any sense to me. So if you don't see your design here, I'm sorry. It probably means that I just couldn't get a handle on your design. And with that in mind, a few quick things to kind of talk about before we dive in. And I'll try and highlight this on the particular designs as we get through them. But here's just a few things that I noticed. So whenever I do a design review like this, I send out an email. People respond with their designs, and it's often the similar kind of issues and problems that I see cropping up. So I just thought I'd highlight a few of them now, and then we'll dive into some of these designs, and you'll see kind of what I mean in practice. But just a few things to highlight. So number one, a t-shirt is its own thing, by which I mean a t-shirt is a specific product. It has specific characteristics, which means that a t-shirt design should look different from a poster design. It should look different from an Instagram post. It should look different from a leaflet design or something like that. So this is something to bear in mind. It's something that you'll see in quite a lot of the designs that we're going to look at here is they don't really look necessarily like t-shirt designs. It's not obvious that they're made for t-shirts, and there's some some of the same design problems we run into a lot. So things like too many colors being used, so it doesn't really gel very well. Things like layout issues when there's too much going on a design, all kinds of problems that we see again and again, and it just makes things look like you haven't really thought about the fact that it's going to go on a t-shirt. And that's very important. If you want people to buy your t-shirts, it really helps if your t-shirt designs look like they belong on t-shirts and that they fit that canvas and they fit that purpose. Just because you can put and print anything on a t-shirt doesn't mean you should. And it doesn't mean that people are going to respond well to that. If you look at top selling t-shirts, whether on Red Bull or Amazon or any of these sites, on Etsy, you will see that they look like t-shirt designs. They follow some of these rules. They follow rules about layout. They follow rules about limited colors. They often follow certain rules about the illustration style and stuff like that. So we'll get into that, but that's one thing I wanted to highlight. A lot of designs I see, they do not, they basically start from scratch every single time, which is to say, they make no use of visual references, of aesthetic styles. They kind of start from a kind of blank canvas, if you like, and this is really a problem that happens a lot, and it's kind of like reinventing the wheel every time, and it means that your designs have nothing to pull on. It's very difficult for them to connect with people if you do this. And the solution to this is to look around you and look at existing references, visual references, and frameworks. And I'll give you some examples here, but I mean, this could be as simple as, or a really obvious example is to play on a certain style or theme. So if you're doing a Halloween design, of course, you should make it look, spooky, and you're going to want to use bats in the background or whatever it is. You're going to make it want to look like a Halloween design, and maybe you play on some references like that. That's a really obvious, kind of basic example. But what you don't want to do is be starting from scratch with a kind of unique font and a unique color palette and a illustration style which doesn't really click with anything. So yeah, I say that because a lot of times I say, let's come up with original designs. I want to help you come up with original designs. And original doesn't mean that your design should be, detached and floating out in space and detached from anything else and not making any reference to something. It doesn't mean that a design should be inaccessible. And if you use existing frameworks and existing references and these kind of things, saves you a lot of time, saves the buyer a lot of time. They understand things quicker, and it's going to lead to more sales. So a few points there. And push your concepts. We'll look at some concepts here which have not really been pushed, which are maybe a bit weak, and I'll give some tips on how you can improve them. And focus on the hook. So the hook is the thing that makes your design interesting or makes people laugh, or it gives it, it sets it apart from something else. A really basic design without a hook is gonna, it's really gonna struggle to sell. One of the best hooks is comedy and humor and jokes in your designs, but there's other kind of hooks as well, and we'll have a look at some of those here. So those are some things I wanted to highlight. I've just kind of turned the lights on here, and I'm already feeling the heat, so I'm just going to take my sweater off here for a second. I will spare you any danger of seeing my torso while I take my jumper off there. Okay, I'm back. Let's go. Okay, so hope that's all clear and good. I'm sure it will come clear as we go through. So yeah, if you just joined us, we're going to do a t-shirt design review session starting now. I do not have your names, so I have a selection of designs here. You might see yours here, you might not. But I don't know whose design is who, so that might be good. Maybe you want a bit of anonymity, but I won't be using names, so please apologize. I apologize if I don't know your name and if that comes off as a little rude. But let's get into it. Let's do some tough love here on some t-shirt design. So first one up here, we have this one, which says Halloween haunting. And I hesitated to say what this was, but it looks to me pretty obvious to be a skull character, a skeleton, or even death itself. You can see the scythe there with a jack-o'-lantern light, I guess. I think. Um, the only reason I'm hesitating here is it suddenly occurs to me whether this is some known character. I don't think it is, or if it is, it's not obvious to me what that character is. So we have here basically an illustration of a spooky skeleton character carrying a jack-o'-lantern. Please drop in the comments, by the way, if I do miss some obvious reference or something like that. And we have a cat on his shoulder, and we have Halloween haunting at the top. So the first thing to say about this design is that it is very nicely done. This is obviously a very well drawn illustration by an illustrator who knows about form and shape and composition, and look at the detail and the the flow of the illustration, the use of kind of depth that's going on here. Oh, we got him. Here it's Vinayak. Vin, how are you doing, Vin? Thank you for joining us. Yeah, it's not supposed to be like when I say a character, it's not supposed to be like a character from a movie or a computer game or anything, is it? It's just kind of a generic, what would you say, death skeleton, something like that. But yeah, this is as David and Governor say, it is, and Stephanie, it is an amazing illustration. So the illustration skills cannot be knocked. So yeah, Vin's confirming here it's a skeleton pumpkin. So that's cool. So yeah, the illustration is great. The problem comes when kind of my first point before, there is no obvious hook here, and this does not look to me like a t-shirt design. This looks like an illustration. It actually looks a lot more like a comic book cover or something like that than it does a t-shirt design. And this spills into the text as well, because Halloween haunting, there's no concept here. There's no joke. There's no hook, as it were. So all we have to go on is this nice illustration. So what it boils down to is, will someone want to wear this illustration on a t-shirt? Now, some people might, absolutely. But for the general population, the general public, and in particular, people buying t-shirts online, unless they know who you are, Vin, and they're looking for your art or something like that, this is going to be a really hard design to sell to someone. Someone looking for a Halloween shirt, they're generally, if you look at the Halloween shirts that sell around Halloween, they're going to be jokes. They're going to be, funny quotes. They're going to be things like that. They're not going to be just kind of generic illustrations of characters that are very nicely drawn. So yeah, that's the principal problem here. Is there's not a clear hook. There's not a clear joke. There's nothing to really attract me to want to wear this on my chest. The only thing that might is the quality of the illustration, which is a difficult line to go down. Like it's hard to sell. You might be able to sell. Some of the best places to sell really intricate art and stuff are sites like T Fury and Ripped and Shirt Punch and these kind of places. But in general, it's a hard sell because there's no real hook going on there. So yeah, I don't think a design like this is necessarily, I wouldn't say let's take this and turn it into a t-shirt design. I would say this is a great piece of artwork. This should be front and center in your portfolio or on Instagram. Maybe you could mock this up as like a comic book cover or something like that. If people are looking for this kind of illustration work, I think you've shown yourself to be more than capable of it. It's just not a t-shirt design, right? So, there's people who create incredible artwork. It just doesn't mean that it's going to sell on a t-shirt. So it's that distinction between the two. So, or Vince says wall art. Yeah. It's certainly more, it's closer to a poster than it is a t-shirt, if that makes sense. But again, you have to answer that question of what's the motivation? Why does someone want to buy it? Why would someone want to buy it? Nice illustration or really good quality illustration is a thing that people want, that people respond to. But it's still a really hard sell. It's still a really difficult line to go down. If you can instead focus on coming up with, a strong concept, a strong joke. I mentioned, for example, that this looks like a comic book cover. The comic book cover style or concept, or framework, if you like, is something that you can play on. So maybe you go down that kind of route, as a design idea. Maybe you do something like, what if the Great Pumpkin was a comic book character, or what if something like that. So it's more about thinking of those hooks and those opportunities, rather than let me do an illustration that I want to draw and then try and whack it on a t-shirt, if that makes sense. Brian says, if you build up a following of people who like your art, you could sell it as opposed to all wall art. Yes, absolutely, that's true. Of course, if you build up your own following and you have people who like your art because they like your art, or because they like you, then that makes life a lot easier, and that makes it easy to sell things to them. So yeah, absolutely. But yeah, absolutely great illustration, Vin. Thank you for sending it in, and I hope that just kind of helps in general, because you've clearly got the skills. You got great illustration skills going on there. Okay, next up, here's a set of designs. These are all from different people, I think, and I put these three together because they all had one thing in common, which is that they similar actually to kind of Vin's, even though of course we're talking about very different types of designs. But again, these are not t-shirt designs. They don't look like t-shirt designs, or even if we are generous and say that they might be t-shirt designs, they're not great examples of t-shirt design thinking, if that makes sense. So let's take these one by one. So first we've got this one. Excuse me, cat rule the internet crossed out world, and we got some paw marks on there and some cat illustrations hanging around and stuff. So the first thing that occurs to me here is that this all of these concepts here, or all of these are kind of text based. They're text based jokes or funny quotes or something like that, and as quotes, they work. A lot of t-shirt designs are funny sayings, funny quotes, funny phrases. That is absolutely, and these are good examples of stuff that can work. What hasn't been done well is translating that phrase into a nice design that someone wants to wear on a shirt. So cats rule the world is fine, but this is not a pleasant looking design. I don't know why we've gone for a kind of sandy background. That's not a t-shirt color that you see very often in the first place. We've got layout issues here. We've not got a nice balance in terms of the the center point of the design, which should be kind of somewhere here, but things are really off. Cat's rule is off to one side, world is off to the other side, and we have kind of just paw prints thrown around. So I think with this one, we can really just say this whole concept just could be completely simplified. Cats rule the world. I would get rid of internet, and I would look to involve something like, why not have an Earth, have a planet illustration there, have a planet Earth illustration, and have your text either around it or over the top of it or something like that, and really just simplify it. I don't think you need, you don't need paw prints everywhere. You don't need lots of illustrations of cats. We know what a cat is. We don't necessarily need to see one in order to understand the message of the shirt. So yeah, just simplification on that one, and really bring back the color palette. I think the fonts are not that attractive. This, whatever font this is. I've got a PDF you can find all about fonts with some links to my favorite fonts. It's at michaelessick.com/live, the link below. So yeah, maybe take a look at that for some font advice. But yeah, I think this design just needs simplifying, bringing back down to earth, literally, maybe with a planet illustration or something like that. A couple of comments here or questions. Chloe, what do you think about Squid Game niche? Not a lot, personally. I haven't watched the show, and obviously it's IP that we don't have rights to. So technically, I know a lot of people are going to be selling a lot of Squid Game merch over the next few weeks into Halloween and stuff. But yeah, I would personally stay away from it. I think it's a trend that will be gone, within a month or two, and then you're risking takedowns and stuff if you're doing things based on that. Vin says this will work more in typography style, I think. Yes, absolutely, definitely. Hand lettering approach would be a lot more appropriate for these kind of designs. Sherry says cat prints making the continent on a world would look cool. There's a nice idea. Yeah, exactly. A way to kind of bring in the visual and the text together. That's a great idea. David says could have a propaganda style poster for Cats Rule the World. Absolutely. Yeah, like the Chairman Meow kind of idea or something like that. Lends itself to the phrase, works together. Absolutely, that's a better approach. Okay, all I need is coffee and my camera. So here we've got what at first glance looks like, it's pretty close to a t-shirt design. We've got a silhouette, we've got some kind of vintage color palette going on. And the phrase is obviously like, perfect kind of t-shirt phrase. All I need is X and X. But we got some problems. We got design problems here. We've got lettering, kerning issues, letter spacing issues, because this doesn't say all I need is. This says Alanidis coffee and my camera. Alanidis coffee and my camera. So we got design. We need to space out this text, these letters certainly. And then we got some weird things going on here, like the same repeated clip arty looking coffee mug on a Polaroid, printout kind of vibe. So again, here I would just roll this all the way back and like, look, you've got the phrase "all I need is coffee and my camera." There's a million different ways of kind of approaching that text, but again, a simple kind of text-based design where you make the most of the phrase, you make the text the biggest thing going on here. Obviously you space out the letters so that they're readable, and a much simpler approach with the illustration is how I'd go with it. A much simpler coffee and camera illustration. Maybe you can find a way to combine the two together in kind of the way that that Sherry just mentioned with combining cats and the world. Can you put coffee and camera together somehow? Could it be a coffee cup that looks like a camera lens, or vice versa, or something like that? I think there's a lot of ways you can do that and create something that's much more of a hook, that's much more unique and original, instead of a pretty unattractive looking graphic, if that makes sense. Stephanie says maybe they could have a photo of coffee and a camera, so camera inception. Yeah, something like that. And then finally, this one: talk is cheap. Ever spoken to a lawyer? So obviously we have a joke here about lawyers being expensive. So talk is cheap. Ever spoken to a lawyer? I think the person who sent this in asked, because they've aligned it all to the left, whether that was a good idea. I would say not. In general, alignment on a t-shirt doesn't usually make sense. You want to kind of center your text, but we've got bigger problems here because this is not an attractive design. While the joke might be okay, and I think there's work we can do on that, the design again is not something someone's going to want to wear. It doesn't look nice. So you're relying purely on the text to sell it, and even then, I don't think the font is very attractive. I wouldn't go for like a shadow on a black font in the first place. So we've got design issues, but I think the bigger issue here with this one, or the bigger opportunity, would be something like taking it. Lance says talk is cheap is more like a Facebook post than a t-shirt design. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't look like a design, but there's stuff we can do about that. and I had an idea in my head, and it's completely left me, and I might have to come back to it. Talk is cheap. So yeah, here's the way I thought about it. You could do something like talk is cheap. That would be kind of like your big text at the top or something. Talk is cheap, unless you're a lawyer or something like that. So talk is cheap unless you're a lawyer, and you could have like a little graphic then in the middle. Could be a legal weighing scales or something like that, or it could be an illustration of a lawyer, and that would be a decent gift for a lawyer or something like that around Christmas time when people are buying gifts based on professions and things. So yeah, that's the way I would take something like that. Like talk is cheap unless you're a lawyer is to me a better t-shirt design approach than talk is cheap. Ever spoken to a lawyer is less less adaptable for a t-shirt, if that makes sense. Okay, let's keep on going here. Let's keep on rocking because we've got some to get through. This design, you can see, someone sent this in, and they gave a bit of context and said they were kind of targeting people who are into cookies and hot chocolate at Christmas and that kind of deal. And again, there's the big problem here is there isn't a hook that we can really see. I guess if we were being generous, then the cookies making up the shape of the Christmas tree is almost a kind of hook, but it's not a very strong one. It's a pretty weak one. And of course, we just have the generic Merry Christmas. So there's not really a clear. There's no, if someone just sent me this design, I would have and gave me no context. I would have zero idea who we were targeting or why or what the motivation was or something like this. And Andrew here has popped up and kind of zeroed in on what I'm about to talk about. He says Merry Cookmas. And what Andrew's getting at is if you are trying to target people who are crazy about Christmas cookies or about Christmas or hot chocolate and that kind of thing, then you would be much better off focusing on that. And you don't want to say generic phrase like Merry Christmas. You want to say something about cookies. You want to say something like, I'm just here for the Christmas cookies, or I'd rather be baking cookies, or, any plethora of phrases and text and jokes. And even if we just go and look over on Etsy and just do like, cookie t-shirt, we'll find a lot of examples here. Cookie baking queen, cookie baking crew, tough cookie, one tough cookie, crazy cookie lady. If you're someone who's like, oh, I want a cookie based t-shirt or something, Christmas cookie based t-shirt. You had me at cookie dough. Like this is what's I know it's like, oh, there's no illustration there. This is just basic text design and stuff. I'm not saying these are good designs, but in terms of concept, they are much stronger. They're much more likely to generate a sale than a generic Merry Christmas message, because there's nothing here. The cookies are tiny. You can't even really tell that they're cookies in the first place. So I hope that's making sense. Like you would be much better off starting with, a word like cookie, than looking for some phrases you can plug in phrases as I call them, or looking for rhymes, or looking for, just having a look at what's available and trying to do something original or unique or a spin on something like that. So yeah, hope that helps. We got a few comments coming in here on this one. Lance says, read the cookies, maybe work with the concept of leaving cookies and milk for Santa, like, sorry, Santa, I ate all your cookies. Yeah, exactly. Trying to tap into anything, around cookies, the baking of cookies, the eating of cookies, the leaving of cookies out for Santa. You could do things like you could put yourself, as it were, the voice of the cookie. Like, what does the cookie think? What does the gingerbread man say? All those kind of things. So there's loads of different approaches, but you want to do something non-generic and clearly, obviously about cookies, for example. Merry Cookiemas. we've had a few times, but that's good. So great. That's that design. Let's have a look at this one. Disinformation is deadly. So obviously a kind of political reference one. The reason I chose this one and thought I had something to say is that this clearly does look like a t-shirt design. You can see this on a t-shirt design. You can see this on a black shirt. Black, white, red looks dangerous. Looks looks deadly. Looks like a warning. That kind of thing. I think you could make this look more like a warning. Usually, I don't know whether this necessarily follows, but usually I think of warning labels as being the triangle shape. So like a triangle shape with the skull in that, rather than a circle, perhaps might work a little bit better. But the other thing is you sent a few other designs, one of which had a syringe. So obviously we're kind of talking about that which must not be named, otherwise I might get my video deleted or something. So I'm not going to say it. But the syringe graphic that you included, I thought perhaps there's an opportunity to work that in here. So not sure whether you're going to guess what I mean, but you could use a syringe in place of these crossbones. You could use syringe instead of the crossbones, and then you're kind of working your subject into the graphic, like kneading your subject into the graphic as well. So I think that would work. That could be a nice way to work them together. I understand that this subject and this topic could actually be kind of come at from either side. The way I took it was that, well, you know what? Let's not get into it. This is not a politics channel, so we'll leave it for now. But my only point was perhaps you might think, oh, the syringes, that might imply that a certain medical product attempting to help people currently was dangerous, or it might mean the opposite, and that disinformation about that product was dangerous. You can see I'm tying myself in knots trying not to talk about it, so maybe we should just move on. But I just thought that's a good example of looking for ways where you can take two different things and get the syringe in as the crossbone. That's a way of kind of merging graphics together and mixing things together. And yeah, I think that's sometimes when you can do that, that's usually a good idea. Okay, I'm going to leave that one there. All right, fueled by coffee. So I put a few of these ones together. Because these are all pretty good examples of things that do look like t-shirt designs. So like, here and here and here, we have designs that don't really look like t-shirt designs. If you saw them on Instagram or you saw them on Facebook, you wouldn't necessarily, I think, assume that you were looking at a t-shirt design. But here we have designs which I think are much more kind of obviously made for t-shirts, and they look like t-shirts, if that makes sense. It's often about the more limited color palette. It's about the layout and the fact that they're symmetrical and centralized. Are usually in a kind of circular shape or something like that. So yeah, those are. I just wanted to try and draw that contrast first of all. That the difference between often the difference between something looking like a t-shirt and therefore working as a t-shirt is really just kind of basic symmetry, removing colors and making it kind of tie together in one unit. So hope that makes sense. But we got fueled by coffee. So let's take these ones in turn. I think the fueled by coffee design is certainly one of the better ones in terms of illustration style. I think there's too many colors going on again here. I'd strip out a bit of the color. I think there's one or two too many. I also didn't. I understand this is kind of I think it's a Dragon Ball Z reference, but again, that's not something I'm familiar with. So you'll have to forgive my ignorance there. But apart from that, I didn't really necessarily feel that reference is really necessary. If you're going to make some kind of Dragon Ball Z reference or Pokemon reference or what's the other one? Squid Game reference. You would be very foolish to include the title of that, movie or TV show or whatever in your product. You wouldn't say fueled by coffee, Dragon Ball Z t-shirt. So So my question would be, why make a reference? If it's not going to be explicit and you're not going to be selling on the back of that, why do it at all? Why not just say fueled by coffee and just have the coffee looking ready to go or something like that, which it does. So I hope that kind of makes sense. I just kind of think, in general, I would always be wary of playing off any kind of IP that you don't have control of, even if you're not, you're not going to reference it, you're not going to tag it or anything like that. But even if you're kind of playing on the graphics, sometimes it's like, it can just be a difficult thing to then sell. So fueled by coffee, it's a good phrase. It makes sense. The graphic is nice and understandable. We got faces, we can connect with it. There's some emotion being shown. Um, I'm not sure necessarily you need two. You need a takeaway coffee and a mug of coffee. Why not just one? Simplify where possible, and the joke still comes through. But yeah, hope that makes sense. And I would just strip out a few of the colors, keep it a bit simpler, and I think that's a really nice, simple t-shirt design. Only happy when I scream. Let me take there's a couple of questions here, I think. Philippa says, loving my tact here. Thank you for that, Philippa. Picker, there is no focal point on the text. I think the top either needs to be a different font or make the bottom knocked out or different color so there is a patch of reading. I think this is about this one, maybe. Oh, I don't know, actually. But thank you for that, Picker. Brian, I have found if you are going into this kind of niche, you need to go all in with the graphics. Make it clear the position you are putting on the shirt. I guess that's about the kind of disinformation one. So, okay, yeah, fair point, Brian, definitely. And Jazzy says ice cream design is amazing. So yeah, only happy when I scream. Again, you can see like what's good about this. Nice clear font choice, clearly looks like a t-shirt. We got a bit of kind of vintage weathering effect going on. Don't think we need the established 2021 thing. I think that's kind of redundant. It pulls away from the design. It doesn't have anything to do with the design itself, so that's unnecessary. I did wonder whether I think the illustration, if I'm honest, is a little bit amateurish. It doesn't, it's not quite there, but it's obvious that we've got ice cream. I wonder whether only happy when I scream. I would probably have gone with ice cream. I would write out ice cream instead of I scream. Personally, I would have written out ice cream. However, this works as well. You could also flip it. Only happy when I scream, and you could kind of get maybe some horror element in there or something. I'll leave that one up to you. But whoops. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things that are good about this design. I would try and improve the illustration. It's not exactly clear to me if this. I guess this one is screaming. But yeah, I think it's a pretty understandable joke. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. There's a lot to commend there in the design wise. And Happy Cataween. This is an example of very simple illustration style, vector graphics, and it clearly looks like a t-shirt design. I think, and limited color palette as well. If there's something letting this one down, I would say the concept is pretty weak. Happy Cataween is like a stretch of a pun. Cat doesn't rhyme with Hal, and that's usually what you want to do with a replacement pun like that. You want to swap out something that rhymes or sounds very close to. So there's lots of other approaches. If you want to mix cats with Halloween, there's a lot of other phrases and things you can do. If we just do a quick search, you'll see what I mean. If we just look for cat Halloween shirt. What have we got? Paranormal, per evil, Black Cat Candy Co. We got cat as a tarot card style. So I'm not like there's a lot here that's not necessarily that strong or good, but you're freaking me out. Creature of the night. So you can see, there's a lot of stuff there that's a little bit more that's stronger pun wise and joke wise and concept wise than Happy Catoween, which, you know, it's just I would have left that one on the shelf personally, and tried to go for something a bit stronger. But yeah, again, illustration wise, you know what? Looking at these three side by side, I can see why I prefer this guy over here. It's because this look. You can see this has been like hand drawn. There's a nice kind of what's the word? Almost kind of painterly type of effect. It looks almost kind of organic-y. This guy over here, the illustration style being so vectorized is a little bit cold. It doesn't have the same kind of personality that this style has, and this one's kind of somewhere in between the two. Like you can see, it's been drawn by someone, but it's a little bit flat, lacking a bit of the character and the skill that this one has. So again, that's sometimes these things can be personal preference, but that's the way I read these, and that's why I would line these three up, and I would expect people to gravitate more towards this style of illustration overall. Okay, Heather says fueled versus fueled, depending on whether UK or US English. Do both or favor one? Yeah, there's more than a few cases of things like that where you have to kind of wrestle with the spelling, because there's a US spelling and a UK spelling. I would always prefer the US spelling because that's the bigger market. That's where I'm likely to be selling more. But of course, you can, depending on the platform you're selling on, you can play around with that and do both and if you want to. Stephanie says, coffee, that makes perfect sense. Thank you for the review. No problem. Samantha says, I love the cat. Picker says, happy Meowloween. Yeah, it's better. It's better. It's better than Happy Catoween. But it's, yeah, I think there's much more that could be done. Vin says, how about Witchy Catoween? No, that's kind of just adding more. That's throwing good money after bad, or bad money after bad. That's continuing to dig the hole you're already in. What you want to do when you're in a hole is stop digging and get out. So yeah, don't pile more onto Catoween. Just go back and find something else instead. I would recommend on that one. Okay, let's keep going here. I think we've got a few more, and then we'll take some questions and stuff. Don't hurry, be happy. And we have a dog on a Vespa or something approaching a Vespa, something similar to a Vespa. Senor Vespa, from what's that one called? Luca. Obviously, this is not a reference to Luca, but my kids have been watching Luca and enjoying it. So that's what made me think of Luca, the Vespa, Senora Vespa. Don't hurry, be happy is a very nice phrase. Nice bit of alliteration there. Don't hurry, be happy. And I, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe I took this as a reference to being like Vespas or scooters are perhaps not the fastest of transportation. So that's kind of something that applies or works for scooter riders or Vespa lovers. Don't hurry, be happy. You don't have to get there fast, but you will get there feeling cool and fun because you're riding your Vespa. So that's good. N. Holloway says, good saying for a sloth tee. Yes, absolutely. I've seen it used for sloth designs, I think, as well. So it works there too. And again, as we're on the topic, what else goes slow? Some other animals off the top of my head: turtles, snails. You can carry on yourself, but you can see how you could take that one phrase and do 4 different designs in it based on, different slow animals or something like that. So yeah, don't hurry, be happy. This is a good example of starting from scratch. Like, this design doesn't have any visual connection to anything. If you could somehow, strip out let's say you're an alien landing on the planet Earth. No, that's not a good thing. But for example, if this was written in like Greek or Latin or something, I couldn't read the language, I still wouldn't be able to understand, well, I wouldn't be able to understand the joke, of course, but I wouldn't really understand who it was targeting necessarily. It would just be to me a cute dog on a motorbike, and then I'd have to do a lot of work trying to guess. Are we targeting people who are into dogs? Are we targeting people who are into Vespers? What's the goal here? So this is a good example of what I was saying earlier about not starting from scratch, but try and lean on visual references, aesthetic styles that are already out there and in circulation. So for example, I did a quick search for, like Vespa scooter, and you can see some styles here that kind of keep repeating. We got kind of vintagey motorbike style stuff. Now, of course, I'm not saying you should use the Vespa logo or anything like that. Don't do that. But you can use the same kind of graphic style. You can make it look vintage. You can look at some of the fonts they've used. You can use similar kind of font styling, use similar colors. There's a lot of stuff here that like this kind of illustration style here or whatever, that would make it look more like the kind of thing that a Vespa rider might identify with. And then instead of, using whatever font you picked because you just liked it, you're trying instead to pick a font because it can be associated with the topic in somehow. And this also applies to the illustration style. Like this illustration style, if you think people who are buying Vespa shirts are buying stuff that looks like this and like this, or like this illustration style, unfortunately, doesn't really fit so much. I'm not saying you can't find a way to do a nice, dog illustration on a Vespa, but I would say, if my goal was sell a design to a Vespa rider, then I wouldn't, initially be trying to draw a cute dog on a Vespa. I'd probably just be doing an illustration of a Vespa. You could just do an illustration or silhouette or some simple illustration of a Vespa next to the text, "Don't hurry, be happy." And that could be a design. It doesn't require a dog. So you can be overcomplicating matters when it's not necessary. And, chances are, look at a lot of these designs, they're simple. There's very little going on a lot of the time. There's just an illustration and it says Vespa, something like that. So you can see how, if these are the kind of stuff that's selling, and I would guess that they are typically, that's a clue that, that would always be my kind of first stop. What's selling, what's around when you search for something like that. If we had a quick look on like Etsy for like Vespa shirt, I would just do a search on Etsy and just kind of scroll through and just be looking like, okay, what are the colors, what are the font styles, what does it look like, this kind of thing here, see how this looks, how it looks vintage and that kind of deal. It's a lot easier to jump in the flow of what Vespa fans are already buying than it is to kind of get into the flow and pull them out and say, hey, don't you like my illustration over here of a dog on a Vespa? Because they might be like, yeah, but they might be like, no, not really. I'd prefer a kind of vintagey, or simple illustration or something like that. So hope that makes sense. For Don't Hurry, Be Happy, we've got two more, and then we'll take questions for a few more minutes. Okay. What else have we got here? Stephanie, would the Vespa shirt be for a business? I don't think so, Stephanie. I'm not sure what you mean there. Brian, looks like a kid's shirt, not the right audience. Yeah, unless the audience was kids who have Vespas, but I guess there's not many of those about. Or kids who are into Vespas, maybe. But yeah, I still think there's work to be done to make it appeal to the right niche. Beth, how can they sell shirts with the word Vespa on them? In much the same way that people can sell illicit material, the world over. They don't have the rights to do it, but they can get away with it. It doesn't make it right, and they may be taken down any minute, and the stores shut down and all that kind of stuff. But they might be able to do it in the meantime. Karen says, not to be a Karen, but I recently saw a guy lose his account over Vespa shirts. I'd be very careful that it doesn't look too Vespa-y. Yeah, well, I think you'd be fine. Like, I think you'd be fine as long as you're not using the term Vespa and you're not using that anywhere. Like you can draw a Vespa, but I would probably not use the term Vespa in my title or anything like that. So yeah. Yeah, Brian's right, because they haven't been caught yet. Trisha, how do you get a vintage looking printing on your shirt? Thanks. Well, you wouldn't do it via the printing; you would do it on the artwork side. So you can use various effects to make something look worn and weathered and vintage and retro. There's various Photoshop or brushes and tools and vectors that you can simply overlay onto your artwork to make it work. So yeah, there's lots of different ways you can do that. If you do a quick Google search for like weathered t-shirt effect or retro t-shirt effect, or YouTube search, you'll find lots of different ways of tackling that. Stephanie says, for the Vespa shirt, looks like the design could be part of a delivery service. Yeah, it does look a bit like that, like a pizza delivery or something like that. That's kind of the impression you get. And N Holloway says, I just got a violation notification from Merch about a VW van design, even though I did not use the logo or the word Volkswagen. So be careful. Yeah, okay. So even in cases where you're being very careful not to use the term and you're not using the logo or anything like that, there have been cases where people have been, given strikes or whatever because they're using an illustration which is clearly a kind of copyrighted design, if you like the VW design for a van, for a camper van, or perhaps even for a Vespa. So definitely beware. As Lance says, some companies are more aggressive in protecting their brand. And like Brian like Ken Holloway just said, there is a wave of designs using VW vans being taken down. So there you go. And Brian says VW and Jeep go after anyone using their vehicle designs. So yeah, cool. All right. So in general, best to stay away from that kind of deal. All right, last two designs. Let's have a quick look at these guys. This one is a load of Dachshund dogs tearing down a coat of arms, a kind of Dachshund coat of arms. And I like concept-wise, this to me looks and feels more like a cartoon, or it might be a little spot cartoon or spot editorial you might see in a magazine or something like that. I really like the illustration style. I'm afraid that the person who sent it in, and I don't know the name off the top of my head, didn't really provide much context. I don't know if they're a professional illustrator, freelance illustrator, but the illustration looks to me quite skilled, looks like someone who knows what they're doing when it comes to cartoon style illustration. So, I wouldn't say this is really, again, this is not really a t-shirt concept. It's a relatively funny, kind of approach. If there was a coat of arms for Dachshund dogs, the dogs would be tearing it down and biting it to bits or something. But yeah, to me, it's not a strong concept for a t-shirt. It's a cute cartoon, but it's not necessarily a t-shirt. It doesn't look like one. It doesn't really click. However, having said that, you've clearly got a nice illustration style that can be adapted for t-shirts. And if you're hearing this or watching this, if you could send me your Instagram or something like that, I'd be interested to see what you are doing, and maybe I can help you, nudge you in the right direction or something on things like that. But in general, I'd say that's not the strongest of concepts. Or Vin says maybe that dog design would work on the t-shirt pocket. Yeah, okay. So maybe it's supposed to be like a little pocket design, but it's being taken apart. That's a nicer concept. Maybe I just simply missed that that kind of approach there. But yeah, I think that would work. Barbara says, I made that. I'm not professional. It's my first design. Well, Barbara, you have a very nice natural illustration style, and you have a clear natural skill. With your colors and your line work and everything. So awesome work. Yeah. And I think Vin's, I don't know whether that was your idea, Barbara, to try and do like a pocket, illustration that was being a pocket badge that was being dismantled. But that is a nice idea, Vin, whether or not that was Barbara's approach. So yeah, that's that one. Very nice. And then Snack-a-Lotl for an Axolotl. That's this guy here. Those are called Axolotls. He's having some popcorn and a little drink, and it says Snack-a-Lotl. So this is great. I think, however, you've missed a bit of a trick because Axolotl, I think is how it's pronounced. So it shouldn't be Snack-a-Lotl. It should be Snacks-a-Lotl with an S on the end. You're missing an S. So yeah, Snacks-a-Lotl, and maybe have a couple of extra snacks just to kind of emphasize the joke. But this is great. This looks like a t-shirt design. The illustration style is appropriate for a t-shirt. The text is kind of interplaying with the graphic, so we got a nice bit of bending of the text and stuff like that. So it's a nice design. I just think it needs an S on the end. Yeah, I would probably make the text a bit bigger as well, personally, if it were me. Maybe try a few different font options, but yeah, I think that's a solid joke and a solid pun, and just needs that missing S, I think, to get it right. Sarah says, thanks for the feedback. I'll take the feedback with the cookie phrases and try to enlarge them too. Cool. Stephanie says, I never knew how to pronounce axolotl. Yeah, it's axolotl, I believe. Livia, that's me. Awesome. Thank you, Livia, for sending that in. Great point. No problem. Great. So there we go. Those are all the designs that we have to review, and we are just 3 minutes away from stoppage time. So let me just highlight a few things that I wanted to share before we wrap it up here today, and then we can maybe take a couple of questions before we close. So Design Cuts are doing a free live sessions all this week. I don't know whether you've seen it already, but later tonight, what is it, in a few hours, Ian Barnard, my friend Ian, is doing a free session on experimental lettering in Procreate. So you might want to check that out. It's completely free. And then later this evening, so at 9:30 UK time, Stefan Kunz, my friend, is also doing a lettering composition walkthrough on Procreate. So if I were you, if you're interested at all in hand lettering, which I think is a brilliant skill to add to your t-shirt designs and make things stand out, those are completely free, and you can sign up at michaelessick.com/DC. And I'll just put the link in the comments there, michaelessick.com/DC for Design Cuts. They also have a special price right now on if you want all the replays. So if you can't watch it live, you can buy access to all the replays. It's not just these 2 sessions. There's been like 10 sessions a day, I think, all week. So well worth checking out if you haven't already, michaelessick.com/DC. And you might want to check out the replays and some of the resources there as well. And then finally, if you've enjoyed this session today, if you want more help with coming up with great ideas, if you want to better understand how to not start from scratch every time, if you want to understand how you can come up with your own catchy sayings and catchy slogans and funny concepts and frameworks that really hit, then you might be interested in my ideas workshop. The doors are closed right now, but if you sign up at michaelessick.com/ideas, you can register and you'll be the first to know when the doors are open again. So I'll pop that link in the comments as well. michaelessick.com/ideas. If you want help with your ideas, you can sign up there. Okay, that's everything that I had to share. The Design Cuts sign up and the Ideas Workshop, on which I'm doing a lot of work, which I'll be sharing about soon. Some new stuff we're adding that's very exciting. So yeah, let me take questions here before we wrap it up. Take a few questions before we close it down. Let me see, what have we got? Livia said, thanks. We'll be adding that S ASAP. Stephanie says, great job, everyone. Andrew, what is the main thing when hiring a designer? Should I have a test task for them? Yeah, I would definitely do that, Andrew. My process when hiring illustrators or designers is to give them a test job. Obviously, I pay them for it. So I pay them a fair price. And yeah, I have a few jobs or something that I want to test them on and see how they do, to see how they work. And then I would always hire based on, I would usually hire someone and give them a certain guaranteed amount of work, every month or something like that, to get a good kind of rate from them. So yeah, Vin says, I love Stefan's typography. Me too. Stefan is a very talented individual, as is Ian. They've both been guests on my live stream once already. So yeah, well worth checking out. Stephanie says, I bought Ian and Stefan's Procreate packs. Awesome. They are really good. Really good stuff. Beth says the event has been awesome. Heather says the vector portrait one was insane. I think that was that yesterday, Heather? I think I missed that one, but I'm going to go back and check it out. That did look cool. So yeah, Beth and Heather are talking about the design cuts sessions that have been happening this week at michaelessic.com/DC if you want to check those out. And Rick says thanks for another great session. No problem. If there are any last minute questions that you want to pop in before we wrap up, I'll give you 30 seconds or thereabouts to drop it in the comments there. And while you do, I'll just remind you, I'll thank you for joining me for this session. I hope you got something out of it. Thank you to everyone who sent designs in and was brave enough to have them reviewed live. Andrew says thanks. Heather, do you ever use your design for all available merch products, or do you just focus on t-shirts? For example, would you bother uploading your design to be used as a tote bag on Merch by Amazon? Listings taking ages. It depends on the design. I think obviously there's some designs that just don't work for a tote bag or wouldn't work for a pop socket or whatever. So I kind of use my common sense in that regard. I don't whack everything up everywhere. But yeah, in general, if I'm like, well, this design kind of works on a tote bag, why wouldn't I offer it? Then I list it on a tote bag as well. There are some tools out there. There's a few tools that will help you speed up the process. I've always used Merch Wizard, which is a good tool for speeding up the listing process. But yeah, there's ways you can slightly speed it up, but you still have to go through a bit of work. So yeah. Livia, I have to rush off for some mom duties. We'll catch the rest later on. Thank you so much. This has been great. Well, thank you, Livia. However, there won't be much to catch up on because we're closing it now. This is the end. Jaideep, you have mentioned T-Fury many times in your videos. What type of designs do they accept? They have rejected my almost every design I submitted. Jaideep, you can see what designs they accept by going on their website and looking. And if your designs don't match what you see there, then that's a good indication of why you're perhaps getting rejected there. So they tend to do a lot of pop culture stuff. So oftentimes they do riff off TV and movies, which is not really my bag, but they pretty regularly as well do more generic pop culture designs based on a meme or a joke or something. So if you've got comedy based, joke based stuff, that can definitely do well on T-Fury as well. Stephanie says, thank you, Michael, for your review and the other reviewers' suggestions. You all sparked more ideas for me. Awesome, Stephanie. That's the idea. The idea is more ideas. Ritesh, what do you think about geeky, nerdy, jock niche? Geeky, nerdy, jock niche. I really don't know, Ritesh. I wouldn't necessarily. That is a very broad niche in my estimations. So yeah, and really, it doesn't matter what I think of any niche. There'll be people making thousands of dollars a day from niches that I wouldn't know exist, and that's the case with a lot of things. So the only way to find out is to test it. Heather says, thank you. Googling Merch Wizard now. No problem. Trisha, should you be using Zazzle, Teespring, Etsy, etc., and get designs on as many platforms available? Yes. I have a blog post on my website, michaelessic.com, which runs through the top print-on-demand sites. If you go to michaelessic.com, scroll down, look for the best print-on-demand sites article you can read there. So obviously, you don't want to put your designs everywhere. That would simply be impossible or impractical. There's many sites where the traffic is too low for it to be worthwhile. So definitely look at that article on my website. That will talk you through the best ones, the most popular ones, where it's worth listing your designs. And Vin says, thanks for the insightful tips. That was really great. No problem. All right, we will wrap it up there. Thank you guys very much for joining me today. If you are a member of the Ideas Workshop, keep an eye on your inbox later tonight or tomorrow. There's going to be a big update that I'm working on right now, which is very exciting. Hope to be able to share more about that publicly soon as well. But yeah, if you're interested in the Ideas Workshop, michaelessick.com/ideas is where you want to go and sign up to be the first to know. And if you're interested in design cuts and hand lettering, check out those 2 sessions that are happening later tonight with Ian Barnard and then Stefan Kuntz at michaelessick.com/DC. All right. Thank you guys for joining me today. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Bo. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Ritesh. Thank you, Trisha. Thank you, Vin. All right. Thank you, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.